A famished hunter returns from the wilderness, desperate for food. His younger brother offers him a simple meal, but at an unconscionable price. "Sell me your birthright." In a moment of weakness, the exhausted firstborn surrenders his sacred inheritance for a bowl of stew. The biblical tale of Jacob and Esau isn't just a story of brotherly rivalry. It's a radical subversion of the ancient world's most foundational principle, that the firstborn son inherits everything. But here's what might shock you. This narrative blueprint of the younger usurping the elder appears across civilizations, spanning thousands of years and thousands of miles. From Mesopotamia to Egypt, from Hittite tablets to Greek epics, the same provocative question emerges. What if the world's inheritance doesn't belong to those who came first? In this video, we uncover the hidden pattern that changes and challenges everything we thought we knew about humanity's oldest stories. Stories that don't just entertain, but encode a revolutionary message that still resonates today. In Genesis 25, we encounter one of the Bible's most troubling scenes. Jacob, the quiet, calculating younger twin, exploits his brother's hunger to seize his birthright, and with his mother's help, later deceives his blind father to steal the patriarchal blessing as well. Yet, astonishingly, the biblical narrative doesn't condemn this trickery. Instead, it portrays Jacob as the chosen one, the future patriarch of Israel, while Esau is diminished as having despised his birthright. This moral framework would have shocked ancient audiences raised on the ironclad rule of birthright entitlement, the absolute right of the firstborn son to inherit the father's estate, authority, and blessing. In the traditional ancient world, birthright wasn't just custom, it was the pillar of social order, the very foundation of family and political stability. But here's the revelation. The Bible systematically dismantles this cornerstone of ancient society. As literary scholar Robert Alter observes, the firstborn very often seem to be losers in Genesis by the very condition of their birth, almost as if being firstborn necessitated one's downfall in the eyes of God. The pattern is relentless. Isaac chosen over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau, Joseph elevated above his older brothers, and even Jacob's own grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, deliberately blessed out of birth order. Time and again, the underdog, younger son emerges as the true heir, the divine favorite. What makes this even more provocative is the archaeological evidence uncovered from ancient Nuzi. Tablets dating to around 1600 BCE from Syria reveal something extraordinary. In the world of biblical patriarchs, a father could legally designate a younger son as firstborn if he chose. As scholar Tikva Frymer-Kensky explains, these family records show cases where a man promises a younger heir the status of firstborn, and on his deathbed, the family could urge him to finalize who should inherit. So the Jacob-Esau story isn't pure fantasy, it's grounded in legal possibility. But the Bible's moral emphasis is what's truly radical. It consistently teaches that divine purpose or personal character can trump the accident of birth. The symbolic message is clear. The younger, often initially weaker or less favored, becomes the vehicle of destiny. But was this revolutionary inversion of social order just a Hebrew innovation? The evidence suggests a far more astonishing possibility. Centuries before Jacob and Esau's story was written down, the Babylonians recited their epic creation myth in Numa Elish. In this cosmic drama, the young god Marduk, explicitly described as a god of the second younger generation, rises to supremacy over the older pantheon. When primordial chaos threatens the divine order, it isn't the elder gods who save the day. It's Marduk, the upstart, the newcomer, who defeats the chaos monster Tiamat and claims kingship. Marduk doesn't just win a battle. He effectively inherits the power of older gods. Most tellingly, he is bestowed the title Bel, or Lord, a title previously held by the elder Enlil, the younger supplanting the elder, the new erasing the old. Assyriologist Stephanie Dalley notes that Marduk's triumph in Enuma Elish tells how the younger god Marduk became king of the gods by saving them from chaos, a classic case of a younger savior figure emerging when the elder god fails. This myth isn't just theological, it's political allegory. Elevation of Marduk directly reflects Babylon's rise over older Sumerian centers. Just as Jacob supplanted Esau, Marduk supplanted Enlil in prestige, justifying a new power's ascendance over established traditions. The parallel becomes even more explicit in the Hittite Tale of Appu, a late Bronze Age story where the moral message is unmistakable. The tale features two brothers with names that leave nothing to interpretation: Idalu, meaning bad, the elder, and Handanza, meaning good, the younger. In this ancient tale, the greedy firstborn tricks his younger brother into dividing their inheritance unfairly, seizing the best portions and leaving the youngest with only a barren cow. But divine justice intervenes dramatically. The sun god blesses the younger brother's lone cow with miraculous fertility, making him prosperous despite his brother's deception. The story concludes with the younger brother vindicated in a trial before the gods, a divine courtroom where birth order is overruled by moral character. Sound familiar? It's essentially Jacob and Esau with different names, written centuries earlier. Across the ancient Near East, scholars have identified what they call the success of the younger as a recurring mythic pattern. These weren't isolated stories, but a widespread cultural framework carrying an almost subversive moral. Birth order does not guarantee divine favor, wisdom, courage, or destiny may reside with the junior. The pattern becomes even more compelling when we turn to Egypt. For millennia, Egyptians recounted the epic struggle between Horus and Seth for the throne of Egypt. After the god Osiris is murdered, his son Horus, the junior claimant, must contend with his uncle Seth for royal supremacy. In one version, Horus and Seth are presented as brothers and co-heirs, fighting an epic series of contests for royal supremacy. Their battle of wits and strength spans 80 years, featuring dramatic episodes of deception remarkably similar to Jacob's story. In the tale known as the Contending of Horus and Seth, we witness a struggle that mirrors the biblical narrative in astonishing detail. Just as Jacob uses cunning to overcome Esau's physical advantage, Horus must rely on wit against the physically stronger Seth. At one point, Seth attempts to dominate Horus through sexual assault, attempting to disgrace him publicly. But Horus's mother Isis, like Rebecca in the Jacob story, ingeniously turns the tables. She collects Horus's seed and tricks Seth into ingesting it, thus marking Seth as the one violated instead. This cunning move by the mother figure completely reverses the intended humiliation. Later in a boat race contest that would determine the rightful king, clever Horus cheats by fashioning a lightweight wooden boat disguised as stone, while Seth's heavy stone boat predictably sinks. Through Isis's shrewd interventions and Horus's own craft, the younger god prevails over the brawnier elder. Eventually, the divine tribunal rules that Horus is the rightful heir. As one Egyptologist summarizes, Horus battles the typhonic Seth for 80 years until the tribunal of the gods finally awards him his rightful place on the throne of all Egypt. Parallels to Jacob and Esau are stunning. A mother's decisive assistance, elaborate deception involving disguise, trickery to fool patriarchal authority figures. In Horus's case, the divine judges. In Jacob's case, blind Isaac, and ultimately the final vindication of the younger contender. But here's what's truly provocative. In both traditions, what appears to be outright deception is morally justified through divine sanction, just as Rebecca had received an oracle that the older shall serve the younger. legitimizing her deception as fulfilling prophecy rather than mere theft. The Egyptian narrative presents Horus's victory as cosmically necessary, restoring proper order. Ancient audiences, far from condemning these deceptions, were impressed by the ingenuity displayed. As biblical scholar we noted before, Tikva Friar Kinski notes, motives are rarely unmixed. Even seemingly selfish acts can unwittingly carry out divine will. The moral ambiguity serves a higher purpose, demonstrating that the younger successor represents a necessary new order. This pattern extends far beyond Egypt and Israel. In the Hittite kingship in heaven myth, each generation of gods overthrows the previous one. The sky god Anu is deposed by his son Kumarbi, who is in turn overcome by his son Teshub. Though these are father-son struggles rather than brothers, the pattern remains. The newer generation uses cunning to supplant the established powers. The Greek poet Hesiod preserves nearly identical themes in the Titanomachy, where Zeus, notably the youngest of 6 divine siblings, tricks his father Cronus and assumes kingship. Upon victory, Zeus doesn't defer to his elder brothers Poseidon or Hades. He claims the prime throne for himself, with his siblings accepting his leadership as cosmically ordained. Comparative mythologist Walter Burkert identified these parallels decades ago, highlighting the shared cultural motif of divine power struggles, where a younger champion establishes a new cosmic order across Mediterranean traditions. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't merely similar storytelling. It's a shared theological framework that spans civilizations and millennia, suggesting that birth order does not determine divine favor. The underdog's triumph appears to be encoded into the very DNA of ancient religious thought. But perhaps the most explicit parallel to the Jacob and Esau story comes from ancient Iran, where Zoroastrian cosmology presents us with what amounts to a cosmic version of the biblical birthright dispute. In the Zervanite branch of ancient Persian religion, the entire universe becomes a stage for a primordial struggle between twin brothers. The high god Zervan, time itself, determines that whichever of his unborn twin sons emerge from the womb first will be granted sovereignty over creation. As you can see, the parallels to Genesis narrative are obvious, but with a shocking twist. In this myth, the evil twin Angra Manu, Ahriman, hearing of his father's decree, literally forces his way out of the womb prematurely, exploiting the birthright principle by cheating his way to the firstborn status. As ancient texts describe it, he demanded his birthright to rule, based solely on this act of cosmic deception. But here, the younger, righteous brother isn't condemned to subservience. Zervan, recognizing the malevolent nature of his technically firstborn son, renders a divine judgment. Ahriman's rule will be limited to just 9,000 years, after which Ahura Mazda, the younger, virtuous twin, will establish final, eternal supremacy. This Iranian myth isn't just similar to Jacob and Esau's narrative. It's essentially the same theological framework elevated to cosmic proportions. It explicitly hinges on birthright, what religious historian Mircea Eliade called the victory of order over chaos, through the ultimate triumph of the worthy younger brother. The stakes couldn't be higher. While Jacob and Esau fought over family inheritance, these divine twins battle for control of the entire universe. Yet the moral remains the same. Birth order alone cannot override divine purpose and moral character. In both stories, we see the tension between technical birthright and genuine worth. Just as Jacob's deception is ultimately vindicated, Ahriman's eventual triumph is presented as cosmically necessary despite his later birth. And just as Esau's impulsiveness cost him his birthright, Ahriman's malevolence ensures his rule will be temporary despite his technical firstborn status. The Iranian version makes explicit what many of these myths imply. The conflict between elder and younger becomes a canvas on which cultures project their deepest values, where youthful vigor and righteousness ultimately renew the world, outshining an older, corrupt status quo. As we expand our view across ancient cultures, pattern is undeniable. In Greek mythology, Zeus, the youngest of 6 siblings, rises to become king of the gods, overthrowing his father Cronus and assuming leadership over his elder brothers. In Hittite myth, the kingship in heaven cycle shows each generation of gods overthrowing their predecessors, with the newer, younger deity establishing a more stable cosmic order. Even in Iranian Zoroastrian tradition, we find the cosmic twins, Ahura Mazda and Engra Manu. Though the evil Ahriman forces his way out of the womb first to claim the birthright of ruling the universe, the cosmic plan ensures that the younger twin, Ahura will ultimately establish final supremacy. From Mesopotamia to Greece, from Egypt to Iran, and even as far as Asia's folktales, we find the same revolutionary message. The last shall be first. The younger shall surpass the elder. Divine favor flows not to those privileged by birth order, but to those chosen for a higher purpose, often revealed through prophecy, cunning, or maternal wisdom. But these myths present a troubling moral ambiguity. The younger hero often succeeds through outright lying deception, like Jacob's goatskin disguise or Horus's fake stone boat. Even more interesting is the consistent role of mothers in orchestrating these setups. In the Bible, Rebekah masterminds Jacob's deception of Isaac. In Egyptian myth, Isis repeatedly uses cunning to ensure Horus triumphs over Seth. Bible scholars offer a profound insight into this pattern. In a patriarchal world where women did not have great opportunities, figures like Rebekah must use deception to be effective, taking enormous risks to ensure the correct son inherits the blessing. There's a subversive alliance at work, the marginalized mother empowering the overlooked younger son to circumvent a system that favors neither of them. Yet the ethical ambiguity is typically resolved through divine sanction. Rebekah's deception fulfills a prophecy that the older shall serve the younger. Isis's trickery upholds cosmic justice for the murdered Osiris. The end, in mythic logic, justifies the means when aligned with divine purpose. The implications of this pattern are amazing. These aren't just randomly similar stories. They represent a coherent cross-cultural framework that challenges the very foundation of ancient power structures. When we examine the textual evidence critically, what emerges isn't just parallel storytelling, but a shared worldview across civilizations. One where divine order may require the overturning of human convention. The Iranian Tale of Appu and the biblical Jacob and Esau narrative both present the upstanding younger brother triumphing over a morally compromised elder through divine intervention, despite temporary setbacks from trickery. The Mesopotamian elevation of Marduk over older gods parallels the biblical favoritism of Jacob over Esau, both reflecting theological justifications for why a newer power, Babylon in one case, Israel in the other, deserves precedence over older established orders. The evidence demolishes the notion of biblical exceptionalism and history. Israel's favorite theological theme that God chooses the unlikely underdog appears to be built upon a widespread ancient pattern of succession myths. So what are we to make of this ancient mythic pattern that spans everywhere? These aren't just entertaining tales of family drama. They represent a profound theological and philosophical message that wisdom can overcome strength, that destiny may favor the unlikely, and that a just cosmic order will eventually emerge, even if it must be won through cunning and maternal guidance. For ancient audiences living under rigid hierarchies of birth and privilege, these stories offered a radical counter-narrative, one where merit and divine election could trump the accident of birth order. They reassured their hearers that sometimes in the grand story of the cosmos, the humble younger brother would indeed become greater. These stories spoke to peoples who saw themselves as underdogs, nations like Israel surrounded by older, larger empires, or dynastic newcomers like Babylon seeking to justify their ascendance over ancient Sumerian centers. The mythic pattern we've uncovered isn't just an academic curiosity. It's a window into how ancient civilizations conceptualized divine justice, cosmic order, and the possibility of transformative change. Perhaps most shocking, it suggests that what we've long understood as uniquely biblical theology, God's preference for the underdog, the younger, the overlooked, was actually part of a widespread ancient mythic framework, a shared cosmic understanding that transcended cultural boundaries. The question we're left with is both historical and existential. Why did so many ancient cultures tell stories of the supplanted firstborn? What deep human need does this narrative pattern address? And what does it reveal about our enduring hope that merit might someday matter more than privilege? That destiny might favor not those who came first, but those who embody the values necessary for a better, new era. The ancient evidence invites us to reconsider not just biblical story, but our understanding of how ancient humanity has always imagined divine justice as a force that may upend our expectations, elevate the overlooked, and establish a new order through the most unlikely of champions. And at the end of the day, this mythic pattern, which is so obvious in this narrative and all the others, should raise enormous red flags on the type of material we're reading within the Bible, putting it in the genre of folklore or some mythic category, not history. Thank you so much for watching MythVision. Like the video. What was the interesting detail in all of this information that you thought was awesome that you didn't know before, or that really made you think, wow, maybe there's information you know that you can drop in the comment section that I didn't cover in this video. Please consider becoming part of our MythVision family by joining the Patreon and becoming a YouTube member. We're doing early access for everyone who becomes part of the Patreon and also the YouTube membership program. We also are going to be doing interviews with experts in person where I take one question from each person who's financially supporting MythVision and get your question recorded on camera with the expert. Be sure to sign up today. Help us out. I have right now with Dr. Richard Carrier, meeting him soon. Also, I have one coming up with Dr. Dennis R. McDonald. This video may not be out in time for the Richard Carrier material, but definitely by the time of Dr. Dennis R. McDonald. And also, I plan on doing future academics too this year. So, I hope you'll help support us. You can take one of our courses as well. Experts who taught classes in high quality own the courses for life at mvp-courses.com. www.mvp-courses.com. Links are down below. Sign up for one of the courses, and thank you so much.